Hey there, welcome to episode 73 of the FFS Talk audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording today, Thursday, April 17, 2025 at 1:40 in the afternoon. That's 1:40 p.m. Pacific time. Today's episode title, Someone Else Should. And you can fill in the blank, whatever comes after should. This will be related somewhat to a story that I have told before, I think. I may have told it here. Definitely told it in the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, which you can find via one of the links I will share shortly. By the way, I am trying to figure out the best way to cut down on S sound peaking in my audio. So if you have found that the S noise is a little high, it gets amped up a little bit, I agree, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to smooth out my audio. I mean, I produce so many audio tracks, you would think by now I would have made it better. But anyway, someone else should do that. See what I did there? The FFS Talk audio program, by the way, if you are not familiar, if this is your first time listening, FFS Talk is intended to be an audio forum of sorts, where someone might come on as a guest, maybe one or more people, and we can talk about what works, what does not work, and what we might do about it. Sort of constructive discussion, critique of the status quo, and suggestions, meaningful suggestions, not along the lines of someone else should do that, someone else should fix that, but sort of here's an idea I have and that we could pursue, we being me or maybe more. So FFS Talk is essentially, if you're not familiar with the FFS abbreviation, it's an Irish expression, certainly by others as well, but I've heard it from many Irish people. And if you don't know what FFS means, you should hang out with more Irish people. End of the day, this is episode 73. There have been 73 audio essays planting the seeds of discussion into the future. So who knows, if you listen to an episode from the previous 72 or this one, episode 0 is an introductory episode. That doesn't really count. So if you like what you hear in this one, or you don't, and you'd like to chime in, that's the whole point of this audio program. Something to think about. Remember, media@ffstalk.com. Hopefully, wherever you've found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes. The show notes include the summary, which I will read to you, and a few links. Today, we have only the 3 shameless self-promotion links, and then we have one, I chose Reddit today, a Reddit discussion in R538 of all places, but it's it's a comment regarding a Cato Institute survey that has entered the headlines of late. So I'll talk about that slightly more, but obviously you can read the link to begin. But let's get to that summary and we can get on with the show. Brings us that much closer to the weekend. A 2024 survey of people in the U.S. suggests that we are all far more domestic that we are all for. Can't even read my own writing. That we are all for more domestic manufacturing jobs, so long as someone else works those jobs. I've often said myself, an entrepreneur is not a real entrepreneur if they believe someone else should solve their problem. Or problems. This might read like a continuation of the previous episode, and maybe it is. Someone else should do something about that. The links for today's episode, the 3 shameless self-promotion links, you are under no obligation to spend any money at any of these. I use them as outreach and engagement tools, as so many other content creators, open source developers, and people in general are wont to do. buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo has a profile page with links to all of my various audio programs, GitHub repositories, affiliate links to my favorite coffee beans from Amazon, and a couple of other things. There's some biographical information at the very top and a link to the posts section where you will find Buy Me an Update, the second link in this little mini series. Buy Me an Update is hosted at buymeacoffee.com. It's an audio program. It's under 5 minutes every Monday. A quick rundown summarizing the previous week's audio programming and then any announcements or upcoming this or that. It gives me one place to make those announcements. Again, totally free, no need to spend any money. If you want to click on an affiliate link, fine. You can actually spend money, and any such monies through either of these platforms will go towards the purchase of coffee or coffee accessories, which powers all of this. Finally, the Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo site. That's ko hyphen or dash. It's the key next to the 0 on your keyboard. You probably pronounce coffee, but to differentiate, Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. I recently discovered that no, they do not require that you link to external audio. That may be true of video still, but they do, I guess, apparently support hosting audio on Ko-fi.com. So my thinking is I could do something a little bit different, but host some audio there to make it more appealing to visit my ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo profile. So stay tuned on Monday for that. And this is the sort of thing I would normally announce in the Buy Me an Update audio program, which I will on Monday. A link for today's episode, Reddit on Cato, the Cato Institute survey. So Reddit on Cato survey. Again, it's a R538, the survey entity formerly helmed by Nate Silver, who has departed and is doing his own thing. But a comment about the survey, which we'll touch on, but which essentially says that 80% of Americans want more factory jobs to take place, more manufacturing to take place in America inside the boundaries of the United States, more factory jobs, but only 20% would want to take those jobs. So more jobs for thee, but none thanks for me in the factories. Something to think about, and it's in keeping with today's title and theme. So let's get into that. Last week, if you did not hear, or to refresh your memory, it was the Recoding Abundance episode from episode 72. 2 books, Recoding America and Abundance. Abundance just published in March of 2025. Recoding America almost 2 years ago now, I think. Basically addressing some causal ideas about the slowing, sometimes stopping of forward progress, of innovation, of effective implementation in a country, that's ours, that had so long been known for quite the opposite, making things happen, the home of innovation, unbridled implementation, momentum, inventiveness, innovation. We were mostly known for that, and mostly in years gone by. My assertion was and is there is so much complication, and I will add corruption here, and in some cases complexity, and I've already gone into in that episode the difference between complication and complexity, that we normal people shrug and move on to more important things closer to home. I don't know anything about tariffs or global policies or immigration or border controls, or the list goes on. So we shrug and we hope things get better. That's what they keep telling us. My proposed solution, which is really more the beginning of changing our awareness, is to get more involved in the infrastructure that is closer to home, so that you are more aware about those complications, that complexity, maybe some of that corruption, so that you can perhaps determine some way that you can drive the system towards something better, whatever better might be from your perspective. Engage your proximal interlocutors. You may find that, quote, better, unquote, has some common facets to pursue. You may think something would be better in this way, and someone else might think a different way, but you might find common ground and think, we should try to do that. Or maybe somebody else should. So yeah, a quick note on the domestic manufacturing. In fact, 3 bullet points. There are actions taken of late by some in the U.S. federal government, closer to the top in the executive branch, allegedly designed to bring manufacturing, basically factory jobs, back to the United States to reduce supply chain dependence on other countries and other parts of the world, and to maintain a certain level of skill within our country so that more people know how to build things, how to make things, and so on. On the surface, that doesn't sound awful. And if that is all you heard, you might believe this is a fine idea. Okay. There's often a joke. If you can tell the difference between somebody who's urban versus a rural dweller if you ask them where water comes from. Forget the fact the United States is the second largest manufacturer of things. China is first, the United States is second. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. And that we have a substantial service economy that we export to the world that doesn't show up in the manufacturing totals. So more factory jobs is one of the goals for some. The Cato Institute survey taken in 2024, but getting more attention very recently, suggests that 80% of Americans do indeed want more factory jobs in the United States. Some agreement with this direction. Yay. But the people who want more factory jobs want someone else to work them. I want domestic manufacturing, but I don't want to do it myself. Someone else should. The interesting outcome of this, especially given the pay, benefits, and other costs involved with domestic manufacturing, not to mention building the facilities to manufacture and then store domestically made products, will make these products more expensive, not only in our own domestic marketplace or marketplaces, but especially to those in other countries. Dollar versus other currencies, any export or import fees, taxes, levies, etc. And then, of course, transportation and so on. Supply chains are long, by the way, because the cost of moving goods around is factored into the overall production cost. So in some cases, the math works out to move something from one side of the planet to the other. And that's just the nature of math and supply chains and resource availability and labor markets and construction resources, the facilities to build and manufacture and the skill sets and all that stuff, all the things, they all add up and the math does the rest. So not only will things become more expensive here, but then exporting them to other countries will become an issue. Maybe, if they're even interested. The move towards yet more automation to reduce costs might fill that desire to have someone else or something else take the factory jobs that everybody believes we need to bring back to our country. Hence the cover art, if you happen to see it, is two robots pointing at each other like, you should do it. No, you should do it. Even the robots will believe something else should do it. But it might be robots. It might be robots and AI that take over everything more quickly. Who knows? Who really knows? The bigger picture, part of the problem, I think that's a podcast somewhere. I think part of the problem is that Dave Smith? We should all be examining is how much goes on day to day that is beyond our awareness, beyond our comprehension, and likely beyond our control, but which we depend on to some degree, perhaps even desperately. Food supply, drinking water supply, drinking water coming to us in our faucets within our homes, indoor plumbing in general. The importance of weather tracking and forecasts, not even climate, just the weather. Just the weather is fine. If we can just have that would be wonderful. Will we? Obviously, first response systems, and the list goes on and on and on, often functioning behind the scenes. Do you even know where the weather report comes from that you see on the various websites up in the corner, perhaps? Your home screen widget on your mobile device perhaps has a weather forecast. Where does that stuff come from? When the systems on which we depend begin to fail, we do take notice. And then what? Do you feel empowered to take effective action to at least find alternatives to move to safety if there is a dangerous situation at hand, maybe in your neighborhood or in your city or region? Do you know what to do, where to get correct information, and what to look for ahead of time to perhaps foretell a situation, quote unquote, that you should be aware of? Do you know where to get good information and how that good information gets to where it is to be read and found and used? This is where I was headed in last week's episode, that we should all become a bit more connected, a bit more aware of how the systems around us, proximal, actually work. Perhaps how they do not, and how we can become more involved in changing that for the better. And when I say proximal, I mean the things that we interact with and that we can actually become involved with. So are you going to join the National Oceanographic and what's the A? NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Aeronautical Administration. No, that's not what it is. But the NOAA that does weather monitoring and other research in that area, you're probably not going to join the NOAA, but you can participate in local. There used to be an effort called the Weather Underground, not to be confused with the group from the 60s and maybe the 70s. They basically enabled you to set up a home weather station, and you could keep track of wind and moisture and rainfall and so humidity at the neighborhood level. And then they would aggregate that stuff and build a weather map. They called it the Wonder Map, Weather Underground Wonder Map. And you could look and see, oh, okay, the wind is blowing down the street in this direction right now or in the last 10 minutes. That was pretty neat. And it would integrate with weather and NOAA data, airport and NOAA data. So you could get airport official reports, you could get larger weather forecasts and so on. And it was all a nice big package that you could play with. And it was free for a while, and then it went commercial. The take home is that you can actually do something almost literally on the ground for getting good and useful data and sharing it and building on that. So you can actually make a change for the better, almost literally in your own backyard. This is where I was. So this is where I was heading, and how can we become more involved in changing for the better? And hey, that would be a good theme for an audio program. What works, what does not, and what can we do about it? See what I did there? If you don't, somebody else should. Entrepreneurs in this picture. I spent some time in Silicon Valley between 1993 and 2013. What a time. So I witnessed entrepreneurialism that we have all felt the impact of in one way or another. Some good, some bad. This was change-making time for those inclined to do so. I mean, if you were in Silicon Valley and you had an idea, everybody was going to stop what they're doing to, this could be the next big thing. What is it? It was built on top of a culture of innovation, a century in the making. And I did an entire episode about this in the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, Vegas as a Better Vegas, comparing this notion to the actual cultural innovation evolution in Silicon Valley, which started around the gold rush time, 1849. This does not simply happen by magic, nor by edict. It's a little, you cannot simply wave a wand or pass some legislation or announce a new policy and have your new Silicon Valley right in your neighborhood. Nor can you simply post on LinkedIn and make it so. I was at an event here in Vegas. It was actually at the Blackfire Innovation Center near IKEA, not near UNLV. It was an event here about 2 years ago or so. It was a pitch competition, and one of the people in the audience, who happens to have a startup that has gotten some attention on the national stage, thanks to a startup accelerator program that it was part of, asked a general question about local media and why there was very little attention paid to the startups and entrepreneurial endeavors, such as his, that these take place in other places, but here in the greater Vegas area where he is based, no real mention, no attention. I later spoke with this person and suggested they could participate in a concerted effort to make this stuff more apparent for local Vegas folk, and of course at the 40 million visitors we enjoy each year. This may sound familiar to you if you listen to the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program in general, and I am working on this right now, the In Las Vegas project, which is going to be based on the MuniBits initiative from Innovate for Vegas Foundation, which I am the managing director of. Somebody else should do stuff, and that is me. 40 million people, they should be aware of what's going on here. Wait, there's not just gaming and professional sports and trade shows and entertainment and general tourism? No. But this person was simply too busy to even consider. Literally, someone else should fix the thing making, in his case, me unhappy. I literally said, would you want to be involved in making this change? Oh, no, I'm too busy. Well, who's going to do it? Oh, somebody else should do it. I asked people on LinkedIn, and okay, that's where the conversation ended, to be honest. Yeah, literally somebody else. If entrepreneurs are going to be entrepreneurs and they are also pointing to others to fix their problems, to bridge their gaps, we have real problems. This is not everyone. Of course, there are entrepreneurs that are actually doing things. Some people are actually taking action, whether it is running for office, creating agencies, maybe a nonprofit charity, perhaps, Innovate for Vegas Foundation, to tackle some problems or generally proactively enabling some path to solution. If you don't have time, you could make connections, you can make some phone calls, you can tell the story, you can make sure people are aware that there are other people taking on the challenge. Everybody assumes they have to roll up their sleeves and go to work. Sometimes being supportive of that work is as important. Important. Maybe we'll just go with important, not as important. The ability to tell a story so that more people hear, and I don't mean posting on Facebook or LinkedIn. Anybody can do that. I mean actually making those personal connections and turning them into, oh, I didn't know somebody else was working on this. How can I be involved? Oh, I don't have time to be, but if you want to be, call these people, go to this website, go to this meeting, etc. So that if they can proactively enable the people that do have the time, that counts. It's not common, but from where I sit, it is not common at all. And it should be. It might be common where you are. You may know people that I don't. I hope so. And so I'm not trying to make a blanket statement here, but boy, do I hear a lot of someone else should do something. And this really, really like poked me in the eye, so to speak, when we were working on Search Party back in 2020, the missing person scenario, which I encountered on Facebook mostly. This is the time when I was still glancing at Facebook. So 2020, into 2021, and that was about it. So it's been over 2 years, maybe 3, maybe 4. I mean, every once in a while I would take a glance, or if I'm looking for a particular person and I know they have a Facebook page, are they still alive? But generally speaking, I try to avoid Facebook. I certainly don't add to it. I don't post there anymore. I don't know if this is still happening there. You can tell me. I would come across a few missing person posts in the old news feed. They used to be called The Wall, often reshared from others, or an occasional original post to a link or of a link to a missing person report. The problem, the vast majority of these posts, especially the reshares, were for people, the missing person or persons, who had been found. Sometimes with a good outcome, sometimes with a bad outcome. But the fact is, they were no longer missing. Resharing these posts was, put simply, a waste not only of the time it took to take that minimal action, like, oh, share, I did my work for the day, but a waste of time for anyone who chose to like or otherwise engage with these posts, even resharing them, rather than actually determining that the person had been located. So I'm not going to certainly I'm not going to help to try to find this person. I'm not going to actually take physical action. I'm not going to do any work. I'm also not going to click on the link I'm about to share and see that the person is still missing or whether they had been found. What I'm going to do is share so that other people can do that. Someone else should check on this. I'm going to do my part and share the link and then move on. I got other links to share too. I got to share like a crazy person. Yeah. This struck me as a fabulously disconnected belief that taking an action such as resharing a post on Facebook, or today maybe moving from Twitter to Blue Sky and posting there in some sort of protest action, is the equivalent of taking some actual pro-action to address an issue or solve a problem or make a statement to affect change. Resharing and amplifying old, inaccurate, misleading information is not only not a part of any solution. It is amplifying a problem in a problematic way. And it is this lack of understanding of this impact that is a part of the disconnect between people and their surroundings. Someone else should really fix that. They really should. So if you aren't connected enough to know that sharing missing person reports of people who have already been found is actually worse than doing nothing, you need to re-examine where you are and what your actions actually mean. Quick little edit. We're coming to the end, I promise. So what to do? What are the possibilities here? How can we make this better? Unfortunately, addressing this disconnect requires individual humans to change their behavior, and this is unlikely at scale. Humans are not wont to do that. However, step one is almost certainly to recognize when this is happening and decide for yourself if you are pointing to someone else or if you are willing to be the one others are pointing to. Pass the buck or move to the place where it stops, which is a Harry S. Truman reference, by the way. Harry S. Truman, president of the United States after Franklin Delano Roosevelt passed away in office. The false quote attributed to Harry S. Truman, if you want a friend in Washington, buy a dog, and other such things. Finding others of like mind will help. Is this going to happen at random on Facebook or other social media platforms? The odds are probably against unless someone else creates a group. All right, I'll stop doing that. If we're approaching the end of the episode, so it's fine. But seriously, social media platforms are not the best places to come across civic-minded people at random. The algorithm may or may not do that for you. They are probably there, but making contact can be a challenge unless and until you begin to make those connections, to make more of those connections. That's how the algorithm works, right? So once you start connecting with civic volunteers, you'll start to be suggested, or you'll start to see other civic volunteers or other people who are community elevating or taking part in such activities, et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of have to set the gears in motion to make use of those tools. What if What if you actually think local first? Well, who do you see around you every day? And of those, who do you see holding that buck? You might approach them and say, hey, I would like to be a part of solutions instead of pointing fingers. Where do I go? Who do I talk to? Where do I sign up? End of the day, this comes down to setting. And by the way, if once you do that, and then, we have a Facebook group. Okay. Is Facebook the best way to go? Is social media the best way to go? They have a profit motive, not necessarily the same goals as you and the people you're collaborating with. So think about that. It doesn't really take much to build a website nowadays. End of the day, this comes down to setting the example, leading the way, the sort of thing entrepreneurs are actually supposed to do, whether it's solving the pain point they're pursuing with one business endeavor or two or however many, or fixing a problem that blocks them and others, or maybe just elevating their communities, whether those communities are local or far away. Like pitching a startup idea, getting to the lean in, reaching an aha moment may take some time and a creative story, maybe some iteration, maybe some pivots. But I have found with things like this, attracting attention with here is what we could do does not work nearly so well as here is what we are doing, even if it's if you would like to join in, to join us, to join in, to be a part of what is already happening. People are rude to be first. They don't want to come to a table with empty chairs. They'd like to know that they're missing out already. That's that motivator. Oh, other people are already solving a problem while I'm sitting here talking about it and pointing fingers at others. Maybe I'll continue to do that, or maybe I'll actually take some action. So it's hard to find. You'll figure out who the right people are to be in your group. I call it the 1-9-90. 1% of people, like perhaps you, are the doers. They're the ones that will roll up their sleeves, so to speak, and take those first steps. 9% of people will join in. Oh, this is happening and I can be a part of it. And then 90% of people are spectators. They will watch, they will reshare on Facebook. They will maybe tell others, I heard so-and-so is doing something about that thing that you and I have been complaining about, that someone else should do something. Well, that's the someone else. Maybe they'll do that, but mostly they're just going to watch. They'll make fun if there's a failure and they will say, look at that. And they won't bother to determine exactly how a problem was solved. They'll just know they need to point their complaining fingers at something else. That's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Someone else should. Hopefully you listened to this yourself and didn't have someone else do it for you. In the meantime, hopefully you are going to have a good weekend this weekend. I don't know if they're going to continue to be easy to find or if they will become rare in the near term. Interesting times ahead. Pay attention if you would. Be so kind. And try to be a part of some solution as the need for them arises. We'll call it a day. Thank you so much for listening as always, and catch you next week.